Mike McGarry's here as we take a look at what happened last night and what it means going forward. We got 2 games left for most teams. Atlanta has 1. Philly's got 2. Eastern Conference still wide open, not decided. But the Sixers did not look good last night, Mike McGarry, from the press of Atlantic City. And we've got people who are now hitting the panic button like, oh, my God, they didn't compete. They didn't look good. Is it a Thursday night in Miami? Or is this a concern moving forward?
You know, I still hold to my position that I adopted about a month ago where I said nothing that happens in the Sixers regular season matters until the playoffs. To me, this just raises another question that will be answered in the playoffs. Is this their lackluster play, quite frankly, last night and in Indiana the night before, a sign of poor things to come, or will they flip a switch when the playoffs start and we'll get a different look? We'll find out. But right now, I'm not going to say that because the Sixers have been lackluster and haven't played well down the stretch, it means playoff doom. It doesn't bode well, but I just think to teams, they don't think of it like fans do and the media do. I don't think the Sixers put the importance on last night's game that, quite frankly, their fans and the media did.
If they win the game last night, Mike, and they blow the Heat out and they look great, aren't we saying today, man, they don't play in the playoffs for another 12 to 9 days? Like, they can't. If you win big, they don't have a game in the playoffs for a while. Can you that whole like, well, do you want the time off? Well, now you're playing your best basketball. So it's almost like that game last night. It's bad. I get it. It looks bad. But if they win the game, now you're talking about something different as to you're always finding reasons why your favorite team can't do what you want them to do.
Or you're finding reasons why your favorite team might be successful. And like you said, if they had beaten the Heat by 25 last night, I don't think that guarantees playoff success. I think this has just been an extremely weird NBA season. And watching a lot of NBA games, it just appears to me that not a lot of teams, if anybody, is playing defense in the league. There's been, I think we've had, since the All-Star break, the most 20-point blowouts since 1967-68, post that All-Star break. I just don't think you can take anything from this regular season. I think it really is a clean slate once the playoffs begin, and then you can make your judgments. And I think the Sixers are a team that they've answered regular season's questions. The questions surrounding the Sixers, can Ben Simmons score in the fourth quarter of a playoff game? Can Embiid stay healthy for a playoff run? Matisse Thybulle, will his defense make him better in the playoffs, or will his offensive liabilities be a negative in the playoffs? Was George Hill enough at the trading deadline? Those are questions that are going to be answered in the playoffs. Add to that, does how the Sixers played the last month of the season going to matter when the playoffs start? I'll tell you what, listening to Doc Rivers on the Zoom last night, he's brutally honest. He gets out there and says, we stunk. We didn't have any effort. Our offense stunk. Our defense stunk. We didn't play with any passion. And then, you say, does it have any long-term effect? And he seems to say no. So I would agree. I think when the playoffs start, it's a completely brand new season.
Right. Well, if we've learned anything about, the evolution of everything in sports, is that one night doesn't carry over to the next. You might lose by 48 one night and win the next. I mean, there is no rhyme or reason in professional sports. And a lot of that, Mike, is because the playing field has become so even all the way across.
Well, I think, too, the Sixers know, the bottom line is the Sixers know that they're going to be the number 1 seed in the East, right? They know even if they lost last night, they lost in Indiana, they know eventually they're going to win a game. They got Orlando twice. They're going to win one of these 2 games. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the East. They know that. I don't know why it is, but to us and to fans, we care about seeding. We're looking at it saying, hey, if you can get the Miami Heat on the other side of the bracket, that's great. But pro teams in every sport don't care about seeding. They don't seem to care about home court advantage.
Should they, though? Should the Sixers care about playing Miami in round? Like, should they have tried to knock Miami further back last night?
Common sense to us says, yeah, if I can get the Heat out of our bracket and put them on the other side with Milwaukee and Brooklyn, yeah. But for some reason, that's not the way NBA teams think. And that's what makes them professional athletes. Joel Embiid does not think that the Sixers are going to lose to Miami Heat. Joel Embiid doesn't care who the Sixers play in round 2. He thinks he's going to go out and get 40 points and 25 rebounds. That's what makes him a pro athlete. Ben Simmons doesn't think the Sixers are going to lose to Miami Heat in the second round. He thinks he's going to have a triple-double every night. So that's why they're professional athletes. They're supremely confident in their ability to get it done, and they don't care who they play.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City right now here on the Sports Bash. All right, so you watched the game last night and see what Miami did. Is that a precursor of what's to come for this team? A lot of zone. Hey, we can't stop Joel Embiid, so this is our way to try to stop him. You try to figure out, and that kind of takes Ben Simmons out of what he likes to do. Get penetration, a lot of kickouts, wide open threes. That's been a recipe for success. Do you think the Sixers will see a lot more zone based on, hey, we got a nice look at what Joel Embiid can and can't do against that zone?
Absolutely. I think especially teams that can't match up with Joel Embiid, that don't have a big guy that can match up with him, which Miami has Bam Adebayo, but still, Embiid will overwhelm that Miami front line. Embiid will overwhelm that Brooklyn Nets front line. If you play a zone against the Nets, against the Sixers, rather, not only do you take Ben Simmons out of it, you take Tyball out of it. You make life more difficult for them there. So I think, judging by the last week of the season, the NBA is a copycat league. You will see teams playing zone against the Sixers in the postseason. Now, the surest way to get out of this zone, and the one thing Doc Rivers said last night, was because the Sixers' defense was so bad and because Miami was scoring with such ease down the other end of the court, they were able to get back and set up that zone. So if the Sixers' defensive intensity increases in the playoffs and the Sixers are a good defensive team and they get some stops and they get some runouts and some fast breaks, then the other team can't settle in that zone down the other end of the court, and it makes it less effective. So, right. But I think you will see teams playing zone against the Sixers in the playoffs.
So, Mike, whenever an NBA team seems to see a zone, they seem to be like when a fifth-grade team scrimmages the eighth-grade team and gets pressed. They have no idea what to do. It's like this is the first time we've ever seen a press.
Right.
Why are NBA teams so slow and so poor at recognizing zones and what to do when they play them? A lot of times at one night in the regular season, we don't know what to do, and they look terrible. Why is that?
I think it's exactly what you just said. I think they don't see it on a regular basis, and you even see that drift over to the college game. You see Syracuse every year with their matchup zone come into the NCAA tournament at 16-11. Next thing you know, everybody's questioning why they're in the tournament. Next thing they're in the Sweet 16 because teams don't see a zone. The NBA is such a pick and roll league. It's such a isolation type league that when a team throws a zone up there, it takes a team a few minutes or a quarter or so to get its legs under them. Now, the zone is never going to stop great shooting, which is what every NBA team has to some degree. And also, the one caveat about the zone in a postseason is, okay, it works on a Tuesday night in Miami, but if the Sixers came back in game 2, would the Sixers adjust to it having seen it more? You would take that away. So the question I would have is how effective would the zone be over the course of a 7-game series? Because I do believe, like you said, the one reason is effective is because NBA teams rarely see it.
Right. And, Mike, they also rarely practice, especially this year. So It's not like you can say, hey, let's spend an hour and a half on Miami zone because we think we're going to see that. They did not have a chance to prepare for Miami or their zone.
Exactly. So now you're talking, if this was game 1 between game 2, today you got 2 hours of practice. You put in 3 or 4 quick hitters to defend again, to operate against the zone, get some shots against the zone, and you go in game 2 and you rip it up, and there you go. I mean, that's what the playoffs is. But I do think the Sixers will see it at least at times because it has been effective, and it does, as you mentioned, take Simmons out of the game. It takes Tyball out of the game to a certain element, and it also slows down Embiid a little bit.
All right, real quick, Mike, we got 4, 5, 6, all right? The Knicks are the 6th. They got Boston and Charlotte. How's that go?
1-1.
1-1. All right. Miami plays at Milwaukee, at Detroit.
2-0.
They're winning that game at Milwaukee.
Yes.
And Atlanta plays.
I like the way Miami's playing right now.
All right. So and Atlanta plays Houston, so they're winning that game.
Atlanta beats Houston, correct.
All right, so Atlanta will be 4, Miami will be 5, and New York will
and the
be
Knicks
6.
will be 6.
All right,
correct.
so that's the way it's going to be.
That's how I look at it.
So that game ended up being, as a fan, the way we view, ended up having importance for the Sixers.
Exactly. And look, would you rather play? I think the Sixers go past either the Hawks or the Knicks in 5 games. Sixers Heat, I think the Sixers win that series, but that series is 6 games, maybe 7, and every game's a grind.
Yeah, and now are you concerned, if you're a Sixer fan, about any of the 4 play-ins? Boston, Charlotte, Indiana, Washington.
I think I'm not concerned about any of the 4. I think Washington with Westbrook maybe gets a game, but I just think the other 4 are non-issue. The other 3 are a non-issue.
All right.
Too much Embiid.
Too much Embiid. Well, that's what we thought. Last night, he looked like he should not have been out there.
Well, I think since the All-Star break, he has kind of dialed it back. And again, when the playoffs come, you're going to see the Joel Embiid that I think you saw in the first quarter of the season, the one that was playing as well as anybody in the league. I think you're going to see those guys. I think you're going to see defensive intensity back. I think you're going to see a completely different Sixers team. But I also think you're going to see a completely different team in some of the opponents they're playing. Especially, let's not forget, the Miami Heat were in the NBA Finals last year. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, pretty good.
No, and it's funny, though, because, Mike, throughout the course of this year, it was, they just don't have – because a lot of people thought they made the finals because of the bubble situation. Like, would they have won road series, playing in full buildings, having to be the road team along the way like they did last year? So a lot of people kind of looked at it and said, it was a little wonky that they made the finals. And then this year – you wanted to keep they went to the finals last year, and then it's like, they're 500. Maybe they're just not that good.
Right, but I think you got to remember that when the NBA Finals ended in October, you look what the Lakers have done on the other side. They've also been a bit sluggish, and I also just like the Heat's culture. Eric Spoelstra, great coach. The Pat Riley culture down there, all in, winning, a winning organization. I mean, I just think, if you could have avoided them and you had them on the other side, I think it would have been a big advantage. But right now I think you're going to end up with Sixers Heat in the Eastern Conference semifinals. And again, that's an interesting series.
Well, right. And you would have Sixers Heat and Bucks Nets. Now, the Nets, we're going to get their first look at the 3 guys playing together tomorrow. They will play tomorrow against the Bulls. Are you in the camp that says doesn't matter, too good, or do they need more? Did they need more time to have you buy in?
I'm in the camp. Doesn't matter. I don't care if they haven't played. I think I read today they played 7 games and 137 minutes this season heading into tomorrow. I don't care. To me, those 3 guys are basketball geniuses. It's like throwing, Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, and Thomas Edison in a room and tell them you got to solve this problem. You're going to get the answer. All right. You throw Harden, Durant, and Irving in a room, you're going to be pretty good.
Well, I mean, you remember, Bosh, LeBron, and Wade did not win the title their first year, and they played the whole season together.
I just think the firepower that this group has if a game's close in the fourth quarter, which it will be, I don't know how you stop those 3 guys.
It's definitely, and I was right before you came on, Mike. I talk about we live in a society that is star driven, and there is no more star driven league than the NBA. So it's easy to just say, all right, they're going to win it. But man, are they going to get a stop late?
They're going to get enough stops. I think they're going to get enough stops. That's the question. I just think they have so much firepower that even if their defense is lacking, which it will be, they are one of the worst defensive teams in the league, but I think that'll improve in the playoffs. I just don't know how you consistently stop those 3 guys in the last 4 minutes of a game, and I think they're going to score enough to win. As I said to somebody the other day, they put points on the scoreboard, not defensive stops, and that team will score more points than the other team.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. A lot of basketball stuff today. Check out his must-win articles, of course, at the Press of Atlantic City. His Phillies coverage. Odubel Herrera, is he the guy in center field? Check out that story now from Mike over at the Press of Atlantic City. What's on the high school docket this weekend?
Basically, some just Diamond Classic stuff, gearing up for the baseball. And as we count down about 2 weeks before we begin the state tournament, and it's really an exciting time because this is the first really full high school normal season we've had since the pandemic struck, and it's been nice, and the weather's getting nicer. So some great performances coming up in the next week or so as we wind down.
All right, a quick baseball stat which has a local tie. Peter Gammons tweeted earlier, Mike Trout is having arguably the best season of his Hall of Fame career, and his 10.9 launch angle, it's the lowest of his career. And that one made my day, Mike McGarry.
Well, I mean, you heard Girardi talk the other day that maybe the offenses had to adjust, get away from the launch angle swing, the strikeouts, and concentrate more on putting the ball back in play. Maybe we're going to get back a little bit to the 80s, basically.
I would love to see it. Mike McGarry, feels like that went by really quick. Good to talk to you, man.
All right, we'll see you next week, Mike.
All right,
Thanks.
Mike will be back Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I had so many people come up to me the other day like, you and McGarry mixing it up. This is great. Well, we'll do it again on Monday.